this new normal series, we are going to talk about the state of branded content in India. So I know, like, ever since the lockdown has been implemented, we've seen that the general assumption out there is that there has been like a spike in the OTT and the web content consumption space. We are trying to understand with content leaders here as to whether that rise in consumption has actually led to some opportunities for content marketers and creators at large, and how does that impact the whole branded content ecosystem. So with me on the panel today, I have um, Angad Bhatia. He's the founder and CEO at Indiatimes Lifestyle Network. He's also the co-founder at Men's XP and iDiva. I have Meghana Bhat. She's the Chief Strategy Officer with Scoopwhoop. She also leads content and marketing practice for them. We also have with us Mayank Yadav from he's the founder at Rusk Media. They are a new entrant into the content landscape. Then we have with us Mr. Vishwanath Shetty. He's the VP Brand Solutions at Pocket Aces. And last but not the least, we have Gunjan Arya. She's the CEO at OML. They are again like predominantly leading the comedy and content space in India. So, guys, welcome to Samosa Talks. I think I can see all of you here. Can you just check your audio? Say hello to everyone.
Hi.
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 Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. So, guys, we've already done, like, we've had a good round of the introduction here. I would just try dive into the topic straight. Angad, to start with, can you take us through the state of branded content in India at this point, and how do you define the new normal for branded content?
Hitesh, thank you first for inviting me. Very pleasure. Very excited to be on this panel. Very happy to see friends. Gunjan is here. I'm missing folks at Dice and Scoopwhoop. Satvik was supposed to be here. I had some of my sarcastic comments ready for him. But Meghna, pleasure to meet you.
I can convey those to him.
Yes, no, I can too. But anyway, I think great to see everybody. And I understand even we have Mayank. Mayank, why do you look so different?
I shaved off my beard. That's all.
Hey, in fact, I spoke to Mayank even last week. So it's great to see everybody and thank you. I'm wondering how many people is just us?
Yeah, this is
76, I think.
76 people are watching us on Zoom, and then probably others are watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as well.
Fantastic. So hello to everybody. Okay, great. Thank you for that question again, Hitesh. So I'll just give you a perspective on how it's faring for some of the brands that we done. So for Men's XP, iDiva, Indiatimes, a few of the other brands within the Indiatimes Lifestyle Network. I'll start with two stats which are quite pertinent from a consumption point of view. So we track time spent per visitor per month, which by April itself was up by about 18.5-19%. And all the way till say first week into June, we have seen a surge of almost about 42 to 43% from last year same time, and about like 25% plus the previous month, right? So I think across, whether if content is being consumed on our social media channels, whether if it's Instagram pages, IGTV videos, YouTube videos, Facebook Watch, all the way till consumption of text content on our websites. Give or take, we've seen at an average almost a 35% plus time spent per visitor per month type of a consumption. I think this also sort of tallies with another very interesting data point that I read in a Comscore report, which said that by April 2020, Indian consumption had breached the 3,400 minutes per visitor per month mark, which was the highest ever witnessed in India, right? And that practically boils down. So by end of April 2020, consumer had spent, say, an average of more than 3,600 minutes per visitor per month, which boils down to almost 2 hours per day per visitor. And now on a unique user base of 500 mil plus, that is a substantial number. Right. So I think that's point number one. Point number two is that the consumption has been, while it's been great for social media, has been great for news information. I think it's noteworthy to note that for categories like entertainment, services, messaging, the rise has been potentially even more significant. Right, so gaming, of course, has seen almost a same report. The Comscore report says almost a 35% plus surge. Of course, retail, e-commerce has seen almost a 45% plus surge. So I think these are all very, very interesting numbers. As far as the state of branded content, I think because the economy went into a shock in March and April, and it's now sort of seeing signs of recovery, at least from an economic standpoint, limited recovery. I don't think the brand activity was in tandem with the kind of surges we were seeing in engagement, right? So across our social video channels, while we were able to hold ground and create some very interesting content despite lockdown, I don't think branded content advertising demand caught up. So that's sort of like, that's where we were in a nutshell. Needless to say that from a creativity point of view, there was a lot to learn from. Internationally, there were a lot of these big shows which are now being done from home, starting from Jimmy Fallon. In fact, we were in the middle of a show called 123 Riyaz, which was an Instagram plus Smule, a show on Instagram on Smule, positioned as whatever India's first digital reality singing show. So we had to and we were in the middle of that show. So we had to now reshoot a lot of that from home, get the content to our, editors to, essentially practically do the same thing, except from, limited, with limited infra, and then working with celebrities. It was all extremely interesting. But even content like that saw almost a 30% plus surge in consumption, right? So, and for a show which was at that scale, to see an equal amount of anticipation from consumers was actually quite heartwarming. However, we saw at least in end March and April, very limited push from advertisers. June, end of May, mid-May, end of May, and June seems to be a completely different story, though, right? A lot of brands, new categories have opened up while others have slowed down. But that's broadly, since you asked me what is, branded content for us during COVID, that's broadly in a nutshell where we are at. Love to hear from others as well.
Yeah. So probably, Meghana, would you like to share some thoughts on how do you define the new normal for branded content and how it has been from a Scoopwhoop standpoint?
So I think in terms of, what Angad said, right? In terms of user growth, there's been phenomenal growth and there's been a huge surge. And we've gotten a lot of new users overall have entered digital. So you're obviously benefiting from that. And I think one of the things from a creator point of view or what we've had to do and what has become our new normal is the pace of innovation, right? While we anyways have to create, innovate on a consistent basis, the pace has gone up tremendously. Now we need to constantly innovate and very fast. So if you see from April, May, and June onwards, the content has to consistently keep pace with larger themes in terms of what's happening in the country, and also at a personal level, how people are feeling and what their time is being occupied with, right? So if you look at April was all about the disease itself and trying to kind of understand the disease. May was about the at least these are the broader themes, migrants and the social impact of the disease. June is becoming more about the economy. Similarly, even if you look at youth, which is our common sort of target audience, even amongst at a personal level, how your life is changing, right? Whether it's the lack of domestic help to work from home, to school from home, to so at home was one big content trend that we had to adapt to. Then we had to sort of adapt to other things like mental health. Those are so that pace of innovation has gone up, and that's something that will continue to be our normal now going forward. So I think that's from a creator lens, that's how it's changed. One of the things that I feel should have happened or should have been the new normal is that brands should have, we assume that they would realize more than ever how important a creator's voice is. When your own voice is restricted and when you have so many restrictions on your own voice and you're not able to do certain things, then your creators and your publishers and your platform's voice can help you in a big way, right? And I think that's the work that we have to again consistently do going forward, is to engage with brands more regularly and more frequently than we have been doing before. At least from a Scoopwhoop point of view, I can say that that's again something that is something that we want to consistently do, and that becomes our new normal going forward. Yeah, that's where we are at.
Gunjan, what are your thoughts on the new normal for branded content, and like where is OML standing in this space at this point?
So I'll echo Angad and Meghna's points that they made earlier. Yes, there is a surge in viewership across the board. And honestly, that is what marketers want to ride on as well. While there is viewership and engagement, etc., going up across the board, we are also seeing that values are not matching up. There is a depression of values, but that is across the board because for advertisers, it's hard to figure out what sort of marketing spends to set aside when they're not sure of what to get on the other side in terms of returns. But that said, marketing is an activity in reach. And the one medium that is promising reach right now is branded content with creators. And we are seeing that across the board. So we work with about 340 creators in 22 countries. And the lockdown has been uneven at best. The medical response in most countries has been uneven as well. So we've been able to shoot videos in Poland with social distancing norms. We've been able to do full-scale productions in Kenya, but we've also had shoots shut down in Russia. We've obviously had shoots shut down in India. So we're waiting for those to really come around. But that said, absolutely echo what Meghna said in terms of re-innovation, figuring out what it means to shoot at this time. We actually just did a video for Netflix that came out. It's called Home Stories. So we are figuring out what it means to do things under the new restraints. But branded content through creators will be the best way to reach audiences. And that's what's seeing a surge. And that's really what advertisers are opening up to right now.
Mayank, where is Rusk Media in this whole scheme of things, and what have you observed from your lens on like what is the new normal for branded content?
Thanks, Adesh, first for inviting me. From the perspective of Rusk, we're of course a new company. We've been growing for the last 1 year. So once the lockdown hit, of course, we did not have the growth continuing for us. Of course, it stalled for a minute. And then we had to remodel content given the entire lockdown. From perspective of branded content, of course, we've had to remodel content across the 4 channels that we run, whether it's fiction, whether it's lifestyle, technology, or music. From perspective of branded content, I think March, April were of course slow. Like Angad said, there were not brands looking to kind of advertise. Of course, in May and June, brands are now definitely starting to look for branded content. Of course, the way they want to engage, uh, they need some kind of linear correlation to branded content leading to sales. And that's like a challenge that I think all companies or all creators will kind of have to focus on over the next 6 months, when marketing budgets are going to be much smaller, or much focused in terms of where they want to spend. Um, but from a perspective of eventual viewership on branded content, I think a lot of people are mentioning that the viewership has gone up. What we've seen internally is uh, viewership on branded content has not really increased. Owing to a lot of macro factors, the categories that have seen a lot of increase in viewership is mostly news, gaming, and live. If you look at other categories, they've kind of not seen that similar growth. I think owing to that the content is probably not premium enough, or the quality of content that you're creating is not equal to what you used to create pre-COVID. We've seen it kind of stall, or we've not seen it grow across categories. Uh, so summarizing, or just saying that for perspective of branded content, at least for the next 6 months, we see it at much. The pricings have to be more in genuine in terms of how to work with brands, so they see value, and they see value in partnering with you over long term, and not just overreach. So I think that's how the new normal for branded content is going to change over the next 6 months, 8 months, till we see a full recovery in terms of the economy.
Sure. Vishwanath, where does Pocket Aces stand in the state of branded content at this point, and how do you guys define the new normal? Because I see there's a lot of like I think you guys launched a series also around this, like a live series per se on Filter Copy recently, and then there's a lot of content that you guys are churning out anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I would take a step back. See, the overall scenario from a revenue point of view, when it comes to branded content, of course, the revenue has gone down. It's gone down to 1/3 now. And see, thankfully, we have multiple channels, right? We have Filter Copy, we have Dice, we have Gobble, which is again a food and lifestyle channel, which, of course, a lot of essentials are covered. So from a branded content perspective, thank God we have like different channels which can cover a lot of such clients. So yeah, of course, there have been like a lot of cuts in budgets. Now imagine a brand like Close-Up, where Close-Up says pass out, and during COVID you cannot do pass out messaging, right? Now that becomes difficult for them to do content. So what we quickly did is, firstly, we understood the pattern and the user behavior on our channels. We came up with new formats. And the one format that you were talking about was our first Instagram fictional web series, right? Which was shot remotely. That did really well, and it grew better than season 1. So we got 30% more visibility views than season 1, which we did in Jan. So that helped a lot. Categories are, see, there are few categories who have taken a lot of beating because of COVID, but there are certain categories have gone multifolds, like edtech, right? Now, if you see Unacademies of the world, Upgrades of the world, they've done humongous business, and they've got great downloads out there. You see dating apps like Bumble or maybe Tinder. A lot of these categories have done really great in terms of numbers. So what we quickly figured, we started forming a different client funnel, where we saw, opportunity with all these categories, and we started curating content around those clients. So we got a decent amount of business in April. We didn't expect that number, frankly, but the strategy worked for us. Also in Gobble, where we see a lot of now, even consumers have become like creators, right? They're throwing challenges out there. They're creating their own recipes. They're showing Dalgona coffee or maybe few other things. That was also worked for us. So we've been openly talking to brands and telling them, you know what, see, this is what is working. So why don't you explore something in UGC space, right? Now, why can't you guys throw a challenge out there and see what comes out of the whole trend. So thankfully, brands have been open. They've been listening to our formats. Newer formats are out, experimenting it. Of course, like Mayank said, the pricing has to be right, right? So since the production is not happening, we are shooting everything from home. We've also cut down our pricing a bit so that we can give that extra leverage to our clients where they are also facing budget crunch. So we've reduced the pricing a bit, and value for money, of course, works amazingly well. And it has worked for us in April and May and June. And innovation, of course, different formats. So I would say, in a nutshell, there has been a content transformation where things have accelerated a little bit in terms of brands' mind. But of course, they're thinking what to do, what not to do, because there is a purpose behind every brand, right? Now, that is suddenly maybe a closer who would have been spending 10 crores in a month now can't do anything because of the messaging. So we have to be really smart when we do branded content on our platforms, is what I'll say.
Right. So, I mean, what I understand from you guys and what you guys pointed out, that the new normal for branded content at this point, or the new normal for content consumption space at this point, is that there's a rise, like there's an upward spike in content consumption. I think, like Meghna said, a lot of innovation has to be done, and the pace of that innovation has increased multifold. Gunjan, you rightly pointed about the challenges around production and the issues people are facing while creating content in this point in time. And Mayank, I agree that the pricing bit has to be right, and even we are not sure whether the consumption has increased in the branded content categories. So, Angad, would you like to tell us, I mean, would you like to share your thoughts on, like, what are some of the new content formats that have emerged during this time frame, and what are some of the formats you foresee in the coming months? Like, because shoots still by and large would happen at home or would happen outside with a lot of special permissions. So, and still it won't happen at the scale that we used to do in the past. So what are some of the new content formats creators can explore, and at the same time brands can expect from content creators like yours?
So I'll address the conversation because that seemed a little juicier on pricing. We've had a lot of clients come to us and ask us for discounts.
Yeah.
And while we've caved in a lot of occasions, I think it does call in for some of the sort of organized MCNs like us to on behalf, because I know say like the Bollywood fraternity is fairly unionized, because the creator community as such is not unionized. It's really hard to have any regulation or even any guiding principles around it. As a result, what happens is that a lot of these micro creator ecosystems or MCNs, have disproportionate pricing. And while some can scrape by, the others can't, and so on and so forth. It's just a big mashup of random things, honestly, which is fine. I think it also. I think I'm not suggesting we should regulate it or there should be policy or that there is any need to unionize anything. But I think at some point we need to understand that much like how the landscape of the creator ecosystem has completely evolved in the last 5 years, so has the landscape of businesses, and businesses who haven't really been able to build strong social identities are going to find themselves a little hard to relate to at least the new gen or the millennials or whatever's to the internet strata or the YouTube creator ecosystems at large. I think the point that I wanted to make is it's no longer so much about the formats, because eventually creators and channels are creating meaningful content, and what it's stimulating is meaningful conversations, right? There is a sense of heightened awareness in a lot of creators now, wherein they feel more responsible towards not only themselves and their sort of niches, but also towards the larger community. And I think it is these conversations that advertisers are trying to tap into, at least the ones who have stronger social identities, who want to amplify those social identities. They're joining these conversations. So again, it's not so much about formats. It's everything is being broadly shot at home. Even Oprah is shooting from home, right? Even Jimmy Fallon is shooting from home. They're live. Netflix, Gunjan mentioned, they've launched a really fantastic series on Netflix, on YouTube. I think some really incredible content is being shot from home. The I think as a sort of a community of sorts, we should also stand firm that brands essentially, as far as branded content is concerned, are paying for tapping and creating or being a part of these conversations and these communities. And it's not so much about asking for a discount because the production hasn't been really, with 2 cameras or 3 cameras or whatever the nuances of production are to build arbitrages that a lot of clients seek.
But like speaking from a brand standpoint, like what I understand from a brand standpoint, they would want to maximize the bang for buck, and they would want to, like, in probably what I understand in your past pitches to brands, a good component would be the cost of production. And now when they see that that cost of
Yes.
production is not going, then they would want a discount.
Hitesh, but I think this is not, if you were a pure play studio business, if you were creating content and handing it out to them, that would, of course, be the case.
Right.
However, people don't engage with OML's creators and Dice Media channels or Scoopwhoop or Rusk Media channels or Men's XP or IDEVA just for our studio capabilities. Right? They want to tap into our communities.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what people pay for, and that really hasn't changed. In fact, there's a surge there. It's more amplified. They're communicating more. They're engaging in more conscious conversations. So I think the brands which have been able to understand that have been genuinely been able to gain during this pandemic, right? And that's why I started my statement as saying that brands which have invested in building strong social identities are the ones which are going to stand this and stand the test of time. Otherwise, if you don't have a social conscience anymore, if you don't have any social identity, these brands are going to be irrelevant in time to come.
So moving ahead from content formats, you think, and this could be like, this is a question for everyone on the panel. Do you think other than these content formats, there is more that creator networks like you could offer to brands, not just say creating content, but maybe doing some integrated or extended campaigns with the creators who feature on these campaigns, and trying to make them a part of a brand story, not just for that one-off video, but for a longer term, like, and that could be that add-on which the brand wants to supplement or to complement whatever they might have lost in production value in the past.
If I could jump in here, it's not necessarily to compensate, but to solidify the engagement and to ride that identity that Angad was talking about. There's a very clear identity that creators manifest for themselves online, and they are married to that. And it's really that identity that their fans buy into, that identity that their fans are engaging with, which is why their content is relatable, whether it's nostalgia or whether it's, hey, you're talking at my level, or hey, this is something that I could see myself doing. And that's really the engagement that the brands get in on, in terms of meriting from that relationship with that creator. And more than just making up for, I think, production, it's also about taking that relationship to its logical conclusion. And we've seen this in other markets. So, for example, in Poland, the same video that I was telling you about, where we managed to shoot it during the lockdown, it's this entire anthem, which has been built by the hip hop community there. We actually launched a range of merch, co-branded along with the sponsor partner, and that was sold out. We sold out about 1,000 hoodies during this time.
Right.
Or for example, in Kenya, where we actually launched a pack of cards. So we created a card game to go along with that bottle of alcohol, and the combined pack sold out before the bottles sold out. So the bottles that we're selling with the pack of cards actually sold out before anything else. So we are trying a lot of these. So, for example, even in Russia, we actually did a campaign called, and pardon my language now, but it's called Stay the Fuck Home Bar. Okay, and it's okay because it's Russia. In Russia, these things are allowed, even in a branded campaign, where creators would hang out with fans online in closed groups. And these are places that you buy a ticket in to hang out with your favorite creator, and people actually pay ticket money to enter these chat rooms and drink along with these people while everyone's obviously staying at home and drinking alone. But at least there's a shared community experience. So I think that creators are a lot more powerful than what they have been doing so far, and we'll start seeing many of these going forward. But to go back to what Angad said earlier, I thought that was really interesting, where you mentioned that Bollywood is a little unionized and we're not. I think the one thing that we can come together on is the fact that we can measure our impact better. And that's in fact what will allow us to go back to brands and prove value as well. I feel like branded content is literally built for this time, right? When you're looking at for the first time, people are looking at TV, looking at print, looking at all other forms of media and saying, hey, you guys don't deliver that kind of value anymore. What is the one vehicle that I have that is not only producing content or is able to produce great engaging content under these lockdown constraints? What is the one vehicle that already has audience attention built in large numbers? Hey, as a marketer, I'm going to go there. If we did a better job of actually proving how great this content is in terms of reach, in terms of engagement, and in terms of delivering any brand metrics, then we would have done what it takes to actually push this along.
Yeah, and I would like to weigh in here. I think, and like as social samosa, we do report the ecosystem to an extent, but what we've seen is that there are not enough and more case studies coming in from networks, and like these case studies are there with you guys, and when you pitch it to brands, but then they are not out there in the public forum. And if that social proof doesn't exist, then a lot of brand marketers get to question even the impact of branded content. But speaking of what Angad was saying around maturity of brands and like having brands who understand this much better and they are open to engagements like this, Vishwanath and Meghna, have you seen a change in the way brands give briefs to you, or like in this time frame itself from April till June, you've seen a change in the way they've structured briefs, they've come to you with requests, or that maturity is still to be seen from the brands?
Yeah, so I think from my our point of view, we have certain categories, of course, that have I wouldn't say changed, but yeah, they have sort of understood the impact of what we do, and therefore the way they interact and the relationship has definitely evolved, right? So for entertainment, for example, entertainment, brands really understand the value of a creator or of a publisher and what they bring to the table, and especially now when it was a time for actually a lot of competition amongst these brands, because that was the only constant form of entertainment available to people. You couldn't go out, you couldn't do anything else. The only thing you could do is binge watch shows or movies or things like that, right? So because of all of that, there was an increase in demand, and our work with these clients then of course matured, and the way they work with us has also changed, in the sense that they really understand. They're looking at different kinds of metrics now. They're not looking just at, okay, how much of reach or how much of the vanity metrics that you can bring in, but also what is the quality of the engagement that you're bringing, which is something that that is a tool with which you would measure, which you would plan your spends with, in terms of what you want each different kind of creator to really bring to the table, and each creator will bring a different thing to the table, right? So we've always had these sort of common metrics across every digital platform, including performance, including Google, including creators. But I think that every creator has their own niche and brings their own story. So some of these brands are understanding that the way we look at each creator then should be different. The kind of quality that you're bringing in, or what exactly you're bringing in, should be thought about differently. So I think we've seen that with with entertainment, and also with other categories that have grown in this period, like dating, for example. Okay, with dating, we've in fact, brands have realized the power of the creator and realized that if the more native the message is, the more the more authentic the storytelling is, the better it works for them, and to trust the creator. So I think those are the two categories where we have seen a shift.
And Vishwanath, from your
Yeah.
side?
So we've got not the briefs have not changed, but there are few clients who want to give back, to the society or to this difficult time. So we've received few interesting briefs which we are working on. A lot of people maybe have been sacked, or maybe there's an opportunity there. Can brand? So this is a time when brand wants to do rather than say. Is what we've got a couple of briefs and we're working on it, and it looks pretty interesting, the formats that we are creating basis those briefs. So I can't talk much, but you'll see in couple of months that happening. Also going back to what Angad and Gunjan was saying about measurability, right? Now, I think a lot of marketers today look digital from a measurement perspective and not from anything else, right? On TV, digital, on newspaper, print, or television, it has always been those prime time spots, and that's it, right? If you want to do a branded content stuff. But when it comes to content on digital, it always has been seen through that lens of measurement of performance or what has it done, right? A lot of traditional clients shied away from it, even though they know there is a performance metrics to it, right? Earlier, but now since they are going through every penny, like where they're putting it in detail, these are helping us to get more revenues, and it will help us get more revenues. See, what we also started doing was we also started recommending third party reports. So a lot of our marketers used to do content, maybe a larger campaign, and then eventually they never used to understand what had happened to the brand in terms of qualitative aspects, right? Where the brand affinity has gone up, what has gone up. They were a little clueless. But now what we started doing, and it has been like 6 months or so, we've been starting giving them a third-party report like with Nielsen or with NEPA, and clubbed it in a campaign, and we showed them what happened prior to this campaign and what happened later. So that gave them much more confidence on investing more and more. So imagine HUs of the world who used to do CPRP campaigns on television are now actively doing short format content, and they're seeing results. So we've built that trust factor in them, and they want to explore this a little ahead, is what I'll say.
And I think this is where we need to learn from these bigger social platforms as well, like say a Facebook or even YouTube for that matter, the kind of metrics they would offer to brands and marketers, and like they are at par with what say a TV or a print offers, not just with reports, but with with the metrics, to say the least. Mayank, you would mentioned in your last word that brands would start thinking towards performance, and that is what has come to us also in our conversation with agency leaders, that one of the important things that would come up as the new normal for advertising and marketing in the coming 6 to 8 months is that brands would move towards performance. So you've seen some work happening wherein like branded content is coupled with performance, or a brand is coming with a brief wherein they say that they are expecting at least this kind of performance from this particular engagement or this particular campaign.
So to say that, okay, so nobody's ever said that branded content does not give performance. Of course.
Yeah. Then like a specific thing that we are expecting these many downloads from
of
this.
course. See, the thing is that what Gunjan said, that you need to have a standardized metric to measure performance for branded content is required, because the current metrics that exist are platform made. So CPV, CTR, everything is what Google and Facebook made because that's their output. What branded content does, you cannot measure it in CPV or CTR. Vishwanath is right that you need maybe, that's not our output. So you cannot measure it in outputs that's made for brands or made for platforms, which is CPVR, CPV, CTR, whatever. So from that perspective, yes, brands come to us with those same KPIs and indicators and ask for that, okay, can you deliver 5,000 comments or itne comments aayenge, this, that. Of course they will come because that's the only metric that they know right now. And till we have a better metric that defines performance on branded content, that will continue to be. We as an organization don't believe that we can promise such KPIs to brands. We cannot commit that, okay, you will get 10,000 people using the product, or people will buy the product, or people will click and go and buy it. What we can say is that we will give a positive enforcement, or we will ensure that people watch what you want to tell the viewers. And we can say, okay, these many viewers will eventually watch what you want to tell. So that's the level till where we kind of stop our measurement right now. And the only next possible set of measurement that is possible is what Vishwanath said. You need to measure maybe brand lift. You maybe need to measure through surveys to say that, okay, these many people watch the content, how many eventually ended up buying it or eventually ended up using the product over 6 months, 3 months, etc. So that's been how we've basically tackled over the last 2.5 months in terms of working with brands.
And I think a lot of it, like this measurability or putting branded content to the test of measurement, has to come from the brand side as well. I mean, they need to understand their consumer journeys better, and they need to figure out certain touch points. So if they are investing in like 5 different avenues, then they need to know that where, like, which part of the consumer journey was influenced by which particular avenue. And like, because like the solutions which you offer or platforms offer are plug and play, but a brand needs to know where the consumer entered. So I think we'll come to an interesting section of this talk, which I really like. We started it last time and it worked really well. It is wherein each panelist get to ask one question to another one, and it could be like you can direct a question to all of them or one or two of them. We can start with you, Angad. So what question would you like to ask and to who?
Okay. Does it need to be specific to like our business, or like I can say, how's it going? Okay.
It has to be
It has
specific.
to be around branded content, Angad.
So we could do that offline, but yeah, I mean, that has to be specific to the topic or the space we are in at this point.
All right. So, Gunjan, this would be to you. I think typically what we do as organizations is that we look at brands at funding our our media outlets. In your case, they are creators, and for ILN, it's media channels, and in a small pocket are creators as well. However, I feel that there are opportunities, especially in downturns, to create value collaboratively. So, for example, over the last 2 years, my network has developed a lot of supply chain and a lot of sort of manufacturing tie-ups with over 300 vendors. You're aware we've created our own about 18 odd private labels. And those are sort of moats that we've built around our business, which are potentially, especially in a downturn, very, very viable for a lot of your creators. So my question to you would be, is that, would you be open to similar such collaborations? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, what roles do you feel that brands, us as brands or brand creators or brand evangelists have, in creating these little ecosystems which could compete with our potential advertisers? And do you think it could turn into this sort of Rajneeshpuram of holistic communities wherein we create the brands and serve our communities and the communities buy our products? Do you think, the question is that, like, do you think it's possible to create this sort of utopian architecture around branded content, create your own brand and merch and have your creators as well? So it's a, there are multiple questions rolled into one. What is
But honestly, there's only one answer.
more questions more around a perspective
I love
than
the fact that you use the Rajneeshpuram example for this.
yes.
The metaphor is superb because it absolutely works, right? And we're seeing this across the board. So you have homegrown influencers who have about 10,000, 20,000 followers on Instagram. Earlier, they sort of built up their profiles by doing, okay, I'm going to do like one yoga pose a day, come watch me, learn a little bit more about what you're already interested in. And very quickly in this sort of new content landscape and new normal in terms, I hate that phrase, but I'm going to use it in terms of being able to step out, not being able to step out and having to do things at home, all of them have become micro businesses on their own, where they're either doing Zoom classes, they're selling it for $250 a pop, or I'm sure you've heard of SoFit Official, which is giving out workout schedules or diet schedules, etc., all on WhatsApp and Instagram. Now, all of these are that new idyllic world, which is a self-sustaining ecosystem where your followers are also your consumers. And, this is another part of branded content, which is digital events. Digital events actually are nothing but another form of content delivery. And we're seeing that in our work with Insider as well. So a lot of our creators that do workshops are being able to sell out really high-end workshops. So $6,000 a pop to learn writing. Or then, $250 a pop where, say, 1,000 people join to learn digital marketing. So this is happening. And we will see creators monetizing different aspects, not just, I need a brand to sponsor this, but if I believe in my reach and I believe in being able to drive last mile conversion, then I should be able to champion a business of my own. So long story short, I definitely think there are synergies there. It's just that they haven't been explored to the fullest.
Fantastic. I'll just sort of end what Gunjan said with a beautiful quote, which I had read. There's a New York based trend forecasting agency. They typically forecast fashion trends. And I think 2008 or 9, they had come up with a beautiful report which said that once upon a time, people were born into communities and had to find their individuality. However, today people are born individuals and have to find their communities. So it's just so apt of the world we live in right now, wherein communities at the heart of every single brand endeavor. It's just I thought it was quite fitting, Gunjan, to sort of conclude that more poetically with my little quotes. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Angad. I think that's absolutely true. I think we'll see this even in the way fans follow creators and then buy into that narrative. All of this is games and identity and identity matching, or then even showing off, right? That's probably where a lot of the sharing activity comes from across these social media handles. Hey, I shared this with my set of friends because I want them to believe that this is the kind of person I am. And of course, there is a commerce aspect to this, which I hope we can work on going
Fantastic.
forward.
Reaching out to you separately.
Yep.
I think that's what I mean. If brands can be publishers, then publishers or creators can also become brands. And like while you were giving Rajneeshpuram analogy, I was thinking about Atmanirbhar content creator or Atmanirbhar creator network, which creates content, builds communities, and then sells that, like creates consumers out of those communities. Probably I'll ask Mayank. Mayank, who would you ask a question to, and what would that question be?
So I did not prepare a question, but definitely want to ask Vishwanath in terms of, like you said, like we've seen a decline in branded content viewership because we've seen that it's not in line with macro trends. Have you guys faced it? And like you said that you guys had a strategy to kind of combat it and see what is going to be. So is there a way that, so first part of the question is, are you going back to brands and saying that, okay, there is going to be a decline in what we usually deliver in terms of viewership on brand? And B, how are brands responding to it? And is there a gain share or a flexible pricing model that brands are looking forward to? So
Thanks, Mayank, for asking that question. See, frankly speaking, we haven't seen a dip in any content that we created for brands, right? So we've worked with, if I have to name a couple of clients, as in Bacardi is one client that we worked with them, and the video has done really, really well, which was the whole concept was work from home. So any content that we create, the crux is always been relatability, right? Now, if you make the content relatable to current situation and you make it engaging, of course it'll work. There are a couple of videos that we've created for Upgrad, which has crossed 10 million views also on Filter Copy. So not that we've seen any decline, but we've seen, when I spoke to you about the strategy of the content, we also recommend a lot of new formats. Like we recommended a few formats to Nestle, where we asked them, why don't we throw a challenge to amongst chefs? Like a lot of people were throwing challenges amongst themselves. How can we leverage live as a format on FB or on IG and capitalize that? Yeah, if it is a new format, of course we don't give like the regular views to them or the metric to them. We also give them a comfortable figure that they're okay with. But for them, the kick in that whole approach is a new format that we created, right? Now that works as an innovation for them. So innovation is what we work on. Regular stuff, we make sure that we shoot it well. Initially, we were also struggling how to shoot from home, but now I think in these 2 months we've aced it and we're doing pretty well. Most of our videos are trending on YouTube. That's also a positive sign. Yeah, that's about it, frankly. So anything else I missed, Mayank, or do you want me to?
I think you did everything.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hitesh, you're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear.
Yeah. Sorry. So Meghna, what question would you like to ask?
So I think I have a general question to all the panelists, something that we could sort of discuss, and it's perhaps it's a lot of wishful thinking, but I just wanted to put it out there. Currently the budgets that we get, and I'm assuming that branded content is a big revenue model for everybody on the panel, come out of the digital budget, right? And the digital budget is typically performance and their own social media, and then there's a little chunk of it that goes to media and everything else, right? But do you think that that's a fair category to put content into? I mean, digital happens to be our medium, and that's where we are publishing content. But as creators, typically we are creating content which could go up on any kind of medium, right? Whether today it's the internet and YouTube, and tomorrow it could be television, it could be in some sort of innovative screen, it could be any kind of content, right? That is one piece of the question. The second piece is, from an impact point of view, I've always believed that the kind of content that we create is so rooted in storytelling. In most of the content that we create, is that it's more of a perceptual change and closer, in fact, to television advertising. In terms of the storytelling, in terms of the impact, in terms of the immersiveness of the content that we create. Therefore, in that sense, is this the right bucketing for branded content, to sort of lump us in with digital and that budget, as one part of media or digital? What are your thoughts on that?
Meghana, I would like to add something. So, see, firstly, I think digital is just a medium, to be frank. So, I think it should fall, and it still falls under marketing bucket content. I'll tell you some insights that I have because we worked with a lot of brands. Most of the budgets, of course, come from digital marketing budget, but there is a large chunk of budget which is set out for innovation or maybe doing something different in a year, which a marketer has in his whole campaign or a quarterly plan or a yearly plan. So they keep aside a innovation budget looking at what they want to achieve in this year. So there is always that amount which you can play to get extra monies out, because I'm understanding where you're coming from. So that's one point. See, the other point is if a brand is facing any challenge, right, and he wants to solve those challenge. I still remember Kurkure mein plastic hai was the biggest myth, right? And we solved that by creating a web series. Now, who would have thought we would have created a web series, right? Now that budget, when you solve a problem, the bucket doesn't matter. He will, or the guy, or anyone, the marketing person there, will make a way around and pull budgets from whatever means that he has. So I think, yes, it comes from digital budget, but you address the problem solving issue that the brand faces. I think budget is not like the stopping thing there. He'll figure out a way, or she will figure out a way to take that budget out. And of course, there is this innovation budget that every marketer has with them, that they want to do something different this year. So that's my perspective on the whole point. Yeah.
Okay. So have you guys been able to access that budget?
You have to be really smart to take it out from his client's mouth. Yeah, but that is for sure, 100%. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Vishwanath.
That is it. You can go ahead.
Sorry. So one of the things that we've seen is in being able to go back to them with the way we measure the success of the content pieces. We're able to go back to them with a very clear. So the first step is, hey, this is your landscape understanding today. If your target audiences are not spending time on TV, why do you still have a TV budget? Why is TV still a row in your budget sheet? So that's the first step to accessing bigger budgets, right? Then the second step is, okay, if they're spending time online, where are they spending time online today? They're obviously, most of them are using ad blockers. So let's not spend money on performance advertising or the like, right? Okay, most of them follow creators and they trust creators. So therefore, can we now look at which creators make sense to you? Then we go back. So we have this entire data science team that actually looks at, okay, what is the audience doing online? Which are the creators they're following? Which is why we've been able to work with most of you on this plan, on this panel, because we've been able to go back to them saying that, hey, these are the creators that your audiences are following today, and therefore you need to be on these channels. And that is literally media planning 101, right? So the reason why IPL gets the media values it does is because it's the biggest media moment in that fan's life for that year. And for a brand to miss out on it feels like the brand would get FOMO. You know, when a brand loses out to another brand, they're like, hey, I wish I was there because this is what everybody's watching. But if we're able to use data to prove to brands that, hey, this is what fans are actually watching, then we're able to start accessing bigger budgets. And we've seen this. We did this one, we did an intervention during IPL season with Mumbai Indians hanging out with one of the creators that we were working with. And that video on YouTube got higher views than the match on Hotstar. And we're lucky that Hotstar actually now starts publishing those numbers. So we were able to compare it like for like and be like, hey guys, I don't know why you spent that much money there, but look at this. So I think it really goes back to measurement, all of us being on the same page. And this was really going to be my question to the panel. I'm sorry, Meghana, I didn't mean to.
No, totally. Go ahead.
Jump into my question. But I would really like to have the opportunity to bring this panel together and work on a measurement metric that all of us can agree on. You know, come together, say that, hey, we believe that, you know, likes are a great denominator. Views are something that obviously Facebook and Google want to show, but we all know that those aren't always reliable metrics. But for example, we talked about identity and where shares come from. So if we're able to go back to brands with a metric that says that, hey, shares are more valuable than a comment, which is more valuable than a like, if we're able to go back to them with something like this, I'd love to work with you guys on it and actually just standardize that. I'm happy to share what we've done as well. If you guys see value in it, it'll be great to do.
Yeah, absolutely, Gunjan. I think that's the first thing that we all should work on, and which is and a lot of these measurement guys who are evaluating, branded content are from TV background, right? So for them,
which is the problem.
Yeah.
Which is the
Yeah. For them, the metric is TV essentially, and what TV has brought into this whole world of evaluation, it just percolates down. So of course. I think we should also form a committee like Bhat or something and come up with it.
I think Gunjan and Vishwanath, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Because the issue is not that, we don't have access to data and we don't have access to, qualitative and quantitative metrics. The issue is that it's not standardized. Because every client, one of the bigger platforms we work with, now have their own evaluation sheets, right? And it's good and it's great that they do. However, I also feel that while we should work at standardizing it, it's going to be a process which will always be very, very fluctuating and dynamic. And I think it's a good opportunity as well, that it can keep this potential collaboration fresh at all times. Because I think just if you look at the scale of where we've reached right now as an ecosystem, right? It's what we have at best, 120, 130 organized MCNs, creator networks in the country at best, and across the country, right? Look at a country like China, which has over 5,000 registered MCNs, right? With potentially a bigger reach, at least a dozen or more listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So I think, because we still have about 5-6 years to catch up on the 500 mil unique user creator opportunity. It's good that we have a head start, and we can help sort of paving the way so that it becomes a little more easy for the long tail of the creator ecosystems to take from. And I think that's it's weird that institutions can actually play that role and help create a larger sense of community, even if it's a business community. But I think coming back to beyond metrics, I think the branded content opportunity is going to be, I think I want to circle back, Meghna, to the point on ROI. And I circle back to that is because in the last 2 years, we've run creator ecosystems, our own MCNs, and also have been at the helm of creating our own brands. So our priorities have been sort of right at the melting point of all these three businesses, right? So we launched a brand called Men's XP Mud, which is a men's beauty brand, and a couple of other private labels. And we've really tested the value that we've been propagating all this while. So if we really have to build a bona fide business by selling through these communities, what should be the right metric, right? How much would it sell? How much can it possibly scale? So I think because the ecosystem is so small right now, the ROI is typically demanded by the top tier advertisers, right? But the true value of this ecosystem will unfold once startups like Men's XP Mud or the 18 other private labels that we've launched, or the 100 other D2C brands which are launching, every nook and corner and every week in India, they start using this ecosystem with their own ROI metrics. And I think there is a cost and value associated with storytelling that everyone needs to measure. And I think if we keep thinking of this ecosystem as a platform to drive value for the top tier advertisers, I think we would be doing a disservice to the long tail of brands. And I think we should also focus equally hard on the long tail of advertisers as much as we should on the top tier advertisers, because I think that's when we'll truly see value unfold for our businesses, right? Our ticket sizes still remain to be fairly expensive. The minute we have a more democratized view on our pricing, that's when we truly know that we're building studio and media and MCNs which can truly scale. Sorry, but I think ROI needs to be brought into the conversation in a healthy way. I'll give you an example. For Men's XP Mart, several times we did branded content through our own channels like IDEVA through our creators. We didn't really always see a direct impact on conversions. However, we always saw a dip of almost 35 to 40% in our CAC for normal performance advertising. Right? So there are so many indirect ways to measure the impact of storytelling on performance. And I think for a lot of seasoned advertisers, they will tell you that this is happening, that they maybe are doing with, some great comedians with OML and on Rusk channels and a video on Scoopwhoop and Dice and Men's XP and IDEVA, and their CAC would be down by, from 100 rupees per sale to now, 50 rupees for all, 60 rupees.
Yeah.
Right. This actually happens, and we've tested this out with our own private labels. So there are just because we don't get exposure to that data doesn't mean that we are not driving ROI.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of clients shying away from giving those data also. Yeah.
I mean, you can't really sort of ask them to share that data.
But yeah, we always make a point that
the day, you guys are creators to that brand, and they might have a digital agency in place, and then they might have a mainline agency in place, and at the end of the day, you don't know who's more closer to the brand and who gives that final analysis to that. So that is where I think that whole marketing mix model comes into the play, and that again is not neutral at this point. Like you guys said, it's influenced by one or the other party involved. Vishwanath, I think your question to the panel is left, and then probably we could summarize the discussion with with everyone's closing thoughts.
I don't think so. I have any questions. You answered mostly all questions, I think. Yeah.
So probably then, you guys can share some closing thoughts on trends brands should foresee, or the future of branded content as you see in the next 6 to 8 months or the next year as well. We could start with you only, Vishwanath, and then others.
Yeah, I think, of course, esports is something that is growing really, like esports streaming is growing at a phenomenal pace, right? And we've seen this humongous content abroad, but not in India recently. And we've also initiated this with Loco. Now on Loco, you can stream, your
There is
games.
one, sorry to cut you short. There's one question also for you on Loco as well in comments, wherein they're asking what is the response been, since you're talking about esports and e-gaming, what is the response been to Loco, and how has it helped your umbrella of brands?
Yeah, so see, Loco has always been evolving, right? So we always wanted to be in gaming space. So we started with trivia questions, then we migrated to, normal offline games, and then now we've evolved to esports. So we've changed formats. We grew at a phenomenal level initially, and we're trying to listen to the audience and give them what they want. PUBG, a lot of these new games have created a different wave altogether for esports, and that is what audience want to watch on Loco. The growth has been slow, but it has now we've accelerated it. So you'll see a lot of action on, of course, on esports on Loco for sure. So that's one trend that I want to highlight upon, and of course UGC goes without saying for the rest of this year as a trend.
All right, Gunjan, your thoughts, your closing thoughts.
I think we're going to see a lot more crossovers. Creators are not just going to be native to the social media platforms that they started out on. They're going to start building podcasts that we're seeing. They're going to start making movies. In fact, one of the comedy collectives that we used to represent just released a movie called Chintu Ka Birthday on Z5. Platforms are going to want to access the audience pools that creators represent as well. And that, in fact, is going to make it easier for brands to transcend various mediums and find different ways of engaging with creator audiences. And to me, that's what I'm really looking forward to in 2020, where there are a lot more crossovers. Brands are gonna, in fact, they're working with our creators to figure out solutions for traditional media forms as well, um, because they're looking at them as storytellers, no matter what the medium is, and that's going to be really exciting. So whether it's esports, whether it's radio, whether it's podcasts, whether it's reading out books, so we have a lot more of these new formats coming up, and that's going to make it exciting both for brands and creators to participate in.
All right. Mayank?
What we've seen is I think 2020 is going to be the year of short form content as well. Apart from everything that everybody has said, this producing content under a minute, 30 second, and ensuring that brands can be a part of it and telling a story within it. I think that's going to be like a major growth portion for branded content this year, especially with lower ticket sizes and brands trying or experimenting on shorter content. I think this is going to help build some kind of loyalty for creators with brands, build a working model to see, okay, if this works, what else works. It's a fail fast kind of a model. So you're not exposed to a large amount of marketing spend on one creative or one branded piece. So I think, and this is what we've seen also. This is something that we built our capability towards as well. And this is something that we feel that is going to be like a major growth area over the next 6 months.
All right. Meghna?
Yeah, so I think what TikTok started, which is audience creating for you, is something that we're going to see proliferate in other formats and in other ways also. We're already seeing that on Scoopwhoop, the comment stream and how engaged it is with anything that you'd ask them to participate in or be part of, right? So I think that audience involvement in creating and creating at that scale across multiple formats. Long ago we used to call it interactivity, but or UGC. But I think that's what we'll see a lot more of that happening going forward, and that also presents a lot of opportunities for brands who don't want to only be within the TikTok universe and who also want to look at how audiences can create for them in different kinds of ways, along with creators and publishers.
Angad, your closing thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier, wherein I mentioned that the landscape of businesses is going to be built around building stronger identities. Going back to branded content, I think what you will see is, the age-old saying that everyone is a publisher, every company is a media company, every brand is a media outlet. I think that is going to be more pronounced now than ever before. So that's one. And two, that brands are going to join in social chatter or conversations which are already happening on social media and video platforms. They're going to sort of be active participants of those conversations. And the foundation to both these points of brands building stronger social identities and uh, brands participating in social conversations which are already happening is built around the fact that in a post COVID or during COVID or however you want to look at it, if your brand is not able to build a certain amount of compassion, and if it's not able to see beyond the priorities of just simple product selling, I think if it's not able to imbibe a sense of community, it's going to see a very different future than it would have traditionally. And I think India is going to be very, very different uh, from branded content point of view and brand point of view from that perspective, wherein all brands are going to tap into their social identities across all social and video platforms. And it's going to lead to a dramatic increase in demand for branded content from not only channels and creators that we manage, but it's going to lead to, I think what we've seen is that what we're sitting at as a tipping point for the we're sitting at a tipping point for branded content in India, actually. And I think COVID is that tipping point, because it's given brands the opportunity to understand that their social identities need to be built, and that the creator ecosystems, the multi-channel networks, and them being their own sort of media outlets is the only way for them to build bona fide business models. So I think, yeah, that's broadly it for me.
Right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining in the session today. I'm sure the audience got enough and more takeaways from the session. Just one bit, like what you guys were talking about, measurability or working together on standardizing matrix. In case Social Samosa could help you in any sense, they're happy to facilitate more of these discussions, or even take that particular model to brands so that they understand your point of view as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the audience also for tuning in. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you, everyone. Hitesh.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.